manipulated, reconstructed, deconstructed to be reconstructed kind of effect. For instance, we know that black women are pathologized or stereotyped for having a whole bunch of kids by a whole bunch of men. We know that now in 2020, this is seen as something that brings down their ethical, moral hubris. Right? It literally means you are being a burden to society, and now the government got to put a spoon in your mouth. Now the government got to put you on food stamps and HUD. You're being a burden. You're bringing us down. Think about how this same conditioning was also conducive in slavery for 400 years, 500 years, and it was the complete opposite. Black women were encouraged, rewarded, given more value based off of how many kids they could bear. And our country wasn't concerned about bastard black kids either. When it comes to race and racism, they become the unconscious backdrop as if there's no other context for interacting with this larger section of the demographic. What I know is that when I'm talking to my co-worker that come from Yugoslavia or that came from this random part of Russia, they ain't never really had engagement with black women or Native American women. What I know is that background noise that they thought they didn't know, it's back there. And when they engage with black women, they thinking of those American movies. I think that when people see me on campus and they think that I'm an athlete, they ask me what position I play, what sport that I play, I know that it's not bad intentions, right? It don't change as racist, but you know what I'm saying? I know it's not bad intentions, right? I know that most African-American males that are 6'1" with dreadlocks at the University of Oklahoma find themselves in athletics. They running track, they dunking the ball, or they running the ball. I don't do that, you feel me? But I fit the profile. Right. What I know is that even if you do not know me or you do not know many black people, when you come to the space and place of OU, the backdrop, the unconscious music, the unconscious thoughts. 6'1", dreadlocks kind of hang. You obviously an athlete. They become the unconscious backdrop if we have no other context for interacting with the larger cross-section of a demographic. In this sense, white people have the advantage that other groups do not have. This is what we're about to get into our first mini little lecturette. And you know, if you got questions, we're gonna get into it. But usually the group that has the white men go last and they kind of flow good, which I went first this time, right? Were we able to see was there any difference? What did you hear?
Those were helpful stereotypes. They were positive stereotypes. They serve to lift up a white man.
Hey, but the Asians can read good though.
Yeah, but congratulations for them reading good.
Congratulations for them reading good. It was me being a little provocative. I acknowledge that. But what I'm recognizing is that when it comes to stereotypes, there are a lot of different characteristics that can be given to a group that may be seen as, good. Like, George, you black, you can jump and dance. That's good, right? Like, that's a good, I'm a little bit more than my body. You know what I'm saying? I got a mind too. You feel me? I'm a being. I'm not only a doer. What we're getting into though is I'm one of those like textbook millennials. So I really care about like memes, right? And being a professor, especially that teach like I don't even know, like they ain't even millennials people I'm teaching now. They like a whole other thing, right? You feel me? But they try to be cool like millennials. Anyway, my point is, in this thing we're getting into, I think it's something called meme-education. And when I say meme-education, I believe there's a lot of education that can come from memes, but I'm also recognizing that memes are filled with misinformation. Either way it go though, it's still meme-education because if you care enough about figuring out if this is true or not, you're going to do your research and you're going to be educated more on this meme, whether it is legitimate or illegitimate. With that being said, white people, we're getting into white privilege. A clear thing I want to say is that in the concept of white privilege, white people, it is not saying that white people don't struggle. The concept of white privilege does not mean that white folks ain't went through no trials and tribulations. I'm from the country as well. I grew up around poor white people. White privilege does not deny the phenomenon of poor white people. Can you read the meme for me, please? What that meme say?
White privilege doesn't mean your life hasn't been hard. It means that your skin color isn't one of the things that's making it hard.
White privilege does not mean your life hasn't been hard. White privilege does not mean your life hasn't been hard. It means your skin color is not one of the things that's making it harder. Before I get into the definition of white privilege, I want to make another distinction. When it comes to racial literacy, a lot of people conflate classism with racism. And I want to make sure if we unlearning racism today, we get the distinction between classism and racism. White people experience poverty. Agreed. White people experience sometimes lack of resources and accessibility. Agreed. What this means is that when you are confronted with racial dialogue as white people, this is not the time to start trying to pull out how you had it hard as well. Probably not the most appropriate time to start trying to make the comparative analysis about how you would call white trash and grew up in a trailer park. These are issues of classism, of class, of economics. It's a distinction between racism and classism. And just to make sure, because I know I'm talking to some white people, I'm on the camera, I'm talking to a group of white people, so I'm being clear to let them know that, listen, man, white privilege is real, you feel me? But this don't mean I don't think you ain't never been through nothing. You know what I'm saying? I want to make that clear because I know a lot of times that is a misconception when you are confronted with racial dialogue, especially hearing about the concept of white privilege, right? But I didn't want to just make it where I say some things that's abstract. I'm gonna contextualize it for you. You best believe it. Well, let's get a little working definition. It's the level of societal advantages that comes with being seen as the norm in America. Automatically conferred irrespective of wealth, gender, and other factors. White people can experience ableism, heteronormativity, sexism, patriarchy, you name it, right? All these things, I'm gonna get ahead of myself. I'm gonna wait for that. The last thing I'm gonna say about contextualizing white privilege is the reason why I started this workshop with talking about the education of discomfort is because I recognize that when it comes to racial dialogue, as a black man, I've been conditioned to make it where I don't piss white people off and or I don't say something that might be too truthful that make it where I'm being the bearer of bad news, or what they tell me on social media sometimes, boil it down, reduce it to some simple stuff. You're hating white people. This is a disclaimer, because sometimes you feel, my grandma told me, hey, little George, if you don't protect your reputation, if you don't control your reputation, somebody else will. So it's another disclaimer. I don't hate white people. You feel me? As a matter of fact, I think that I'm taking time out of my black life to tell some white people some things to be better white people. We have these unlearning workshops. We're able to go to unlearning heteronormativity or unlearning sexism. We're talking about different, intersectional things dealing with oppression. Consider a study done by Georgetown, right? Because a lot of times when it comes to these liberal hot spaces, the academia, space, we think that we throw the word white privilege out and it's like, yeah, you said it, but like, what the hell does that mean? Or can you put that in context of why that's even important? Because right now it sounds like you're just using blanket broad terms and you're not really giving me why should I care about it or what is the impact to it. And remember today I told y'all we're not getting into the filicky, symbolic stuff. We're getting into the real, material, contextualized, lived realities of racism. So what does white privilege have to do with the higher education setting? Consider this study that was done in Georgetown about over-representation of whites in elite institutions. Before I even read that, I don't even want to read that. What's important to talk about right here is, I'm gonna read part of it, but what's important to point out is that whites are overrepresented in elite institutions all around the United States, but somehow some people have constructed in their mind that affirmative action is taking away all of these spots and availabilities from well qualified white people, and all of these Mexican and black people that ain't ready to get there, they taking all these spaces. And man, we gotta do something about this. This is racism. Think about that. Although African Americans and Hispanics' participation in higher education has been growing faster than white students, the report found that whites are overrepresented in the nation's 468 most selective and well-funded education or well-funded colleges, and increasingly vacating the less selective open access to the four-year colleges which admits the majority of the applicants. On the other hand, we see that African American and Hispanic students are concentrated with lesser opportunity, lesser resources, lesser access to be able to get to these institutions. A show of hands, we know that our public education system is, if you think that our public education system is a little, subpar, raise your hand. So we can be real about how literally the entire system of our public education is lacking. We all agree with that. And do we all agree that there are a plethora of different racialized students that are in the public education system, right? Mexican students, black students, native students, Asian students, white students, they're all in the public space, right? In a lot of cultural settings, the right way is the white way is a real funny type of thing that's said in a lot of non-European settings, communities. The reason why I'm contextualizing it now is that in that same report from Georgetown, it shows that reports also says the country's higher education system does not treat students equally. Regardless of their qualifications, although many minorities are unprepared for college, because public education is not really letting our kids come in at the grade levels of math, science, reading as they should be. And what we know about Oklahoma, those small white rural towns in Oklahoma, the Edens of the world, the counties that's literally been, you was going to school 5 days a week. How about 4 days a week now? Although many minorities are unprepared for college, whites who are just as unprepared are still presented with more opportunities. What does this mean for the University of Oklahoma? When I got to the University of Oklahoma in 2009, there was a bigger representation of students that came from the east side of Oklahoma City and from particular communities in Tulsa. Since I've crossed over to the other side of being a faculty member, I recognize that there is a different pattern in how we recruit students of color to come to the University of Oklahoma. If you are a person of color and you come from a fluent background, 2 parents, one of them educated at least, preferably both of them, come in Oklahoma. But if you like me and you came from one parent household and maybe both of them in jail or one of them in jail, we see that literally starts to stigmatize how successful we give potential to students in terms of getting into the University of Oklahoma. So white privilege is not just this great concept that people throw around to be very vague or symbolic. There actually is ways that white privilege impacts who is able to get in and who is able to get out. Consider this book. Shout out to Dr. Robin Angelo. Great book about white fragility and why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism. The reason why I'm bringing up white fragility is because 8 times out of 10, When the concept of white privilege is introduced, white fragility is triggered. White fragility follows. Almost if white privilege is the fire, white fragility is the smoke. And what we find is that most folks, they usually care more about the smoke than they do the fire. Like they ain't tripping on the fires if they don't want to deal with the smoke. You know what I'm saying? And that's usually what I find about our society. We'll have more energy for saying, hey woman, the way you're resisting sexism, that ain't that good. We'll have more energy for her than we'll have for the person that's actually being sexist. When it comes to unlearning racism, more people have more energy for telling me how I should resist racism than they ever put energy in terms of stopping racism itself. White fragility. White people in North America live in a social environment that protects and insulates them from race-based stress. This insulating environment of racial protection builds white expectations for racial comfort, while at the same time lowering the ability to tolerate racial stress. If you are looking to have the confidence or the tenacity in being able to have a crucial conversation about race or racism, I encourage you to get this book. Any questions so far? Comments, concerns, believe it or not, I like jokes too. Okay. White fragility defined, because I can't just throw it out there without defining it, and then trying to contextualize it to make sure we have some examples to be able to understand how to filter this concept I've just introduced. To being able to say, when I walk away at 12 o'clock and it's time to go eat, I heard about the concept of white fragility, but not only did I hear about it, I got something I can stick to it, and I feel confident enough to be able to go explain it to somebody else. White fragility is a state in even which a minimum amount of racial stress becomes intolerable, triggering a range of defensive moves. These moves include outward display of emotions such as fear, guilt, behaviors such as argumentation, silence, and leaving the stress-inducing situation. I came to be intersectional, so I'm gonna give you, show of hands who's ever heard the idea of white-splaining? White-splaining? How about mansplaining? What we get into in these situations is, I'm gonna say that. Just hold on to that. Mansplaining, white-splaining. When I get into the next mini lecture, we're gonna get into that. I'm gonna let y'all decide. I've been talking to y'all for an hour now. I have this activity. We can do this activity first and then go on our 10-minute break, or we can go on our 10-minute break and then come back and do this activity. The choice is yours.